On Metacritic, there is a ranked list of some of the highest rated games of all time. This list contains titles like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Half-Life 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Elden Ring. But what you might not know is that on this list, among beloved titles and iconic classics, stands a single visual novel, The House in Fata Morgana. Hi, my name is August, and I want to show you why The House in Fata Morgana is such a fantastic visual novel, an artistic, profound story worthy of its high ratings. For it's a wonderfully presented tale of love and loss, and of hurt and forgiveness, marked by tragedies spanning nearly a millennium, dealing with the darkness of human nature. It begins as you wake up in an old Gothic mansion with no memories. You meet a mysterious maid and she takes you on a journey through the mansion's history. Door by door, she takes you through different time periods to see the unique stories of the mansion's past residents and the cursed tragedy that has befallen every single one of them, in the hopes that by witnessing their tragedies, you will be able to regain your memories. A premise that from the start presents itself as a mystery. The House in Fata Morgana is not a psychological thriller mystery like Danganronpa, nor is it a detective investigation like Ace Attorney, but rather a drama mystery, fully intent on exploring its complex cast of characters, every one of them flawed and broken in some way. Each tale ends in tragedy. Your job is to figure out how it ended up that way, and how The House in Fata Morgana shows you that is both wonderfully atmospheric and devious, hitting you where it hurts the most, all thanks to its crafty script. The House in Fata Morgana is deceitful. I felt like the story was playfully messing with me. Now don't get me wrong, it's not malicious towards the reader at all. Rather, it's more that the script and story likes to misdirect you before hitting you with its clever plot twists. You'll read the story normally at first, and then once the plot twist hits, you'll immediately understand the tricks that they use to hide it in plain sight. I've read my fair share of mystery visual novels, but I, for sure, was caught off guard on some of the surprise revelations. It's certainly an interesting experience whether you're a new mystery reader or an experienced veteran. What's interesting too is that you, the reader, are playing the role of the main character. As the amnesiac individual, you are seeing these stories in a third-person perspective, along with the mysterious maid at our side providing commentary. A viewpoint that, while objective, can also serve to be unreliable. You also get to see the thoughts and feelings of the characters inside these doors. It's a great look of how each person views their individual lives and their partner, but that also shows us the truth on why these characters, individuals who seemingly do well for themselves, ends up with such tragic fates. The worst part is that we, the reader, see the perspectives of both partners. We see the full picture, but the characters remain unaware of their situation until it's too late, leaving us to watch and pity their unfortunate, almost brutal circumstances. Sure, those plot twists and surprise revelations may hook you with its gotcha moments, but it's that slow, burning realization that leaves a lasting impression. The House in Fata Morgana makes this feeling even more apparent as the events you saw before get reframed later on with a different context, which then gets reframed once again when you see the bigger picture. Events from way back in the Middle Ages ends up having huge complications in the later centuries. You think some of these characters will listen to reason whenever someone says, "Don't go to the cursed mansion, there be a cursed witch there." But I suppose it's just human nature to go venturing deeper into said creepy mansion where terrible things happened there for hundreds of years. Hindsight is 2020, I guess. At the very least, it's these moments that become eye-opening when you start to understand the thematic ideas and connections behind the stories and characters in here. Makes you really think, wow, people are really terrible. I didn't think it was possible to sympathize with a building of all things, but after seeing the horrible stuff that goes on in here, I can understand why this mansion is so goddamn broody all the time. I mean, those guys so deserved it. Now, when most people think of visual novels, they usually think of cute anime girls and cheeky dating sims. And I do think it's pretty unfortunate that people end up getting pushed away from visual novels because of that. I totally understand that the anime art style isn't your thing. That said, The House in Fata Morgana is my highest recommendation for a visual novel outside of the anime visual aesthetic. Everything from the unique soundtrack to the diverse visuals to the realistic looking characters is an absolute treat, perfect for instilling that sense of atmosphere and mood no matter what time period you're in. The house in Fata Morgana will take you through a variety of different eras and environments. The Renaissance era and its high aristocratic lifestyle, the Industrial Age and its bustling, turbulent activity of a city hub, and the Middle Ages and its harsh feudalist society. Even the Cursed Mansion, the iconic set piece that remains present all throughout the time periods, still retains that aged gothic feel to it. The music is also worth highlighting. Every song in this soundtrack has that touch of classical music with that theatrical nature to it. Some songs even have accompanying vocals to help further immerse you into its respective era. My favorite instance of this is entering Door 3, where after such an oppressive, dreary tone for the first two doors, the game just hits you with a full load of jazz. It really feels like you're quite literally jumping in time hundreds of years. Really, a lot of the music in the house in Fata Morgana has such a unique, memorable sound. The innocent joyfulness from Ephemera, the haunting, menacing tone from Volpe, the sorrow and melancholy from Everyone's Crying, and practically every song from Door 3. I guarantee you there will be songs that you'll find iconic due to how memorable the scene that they first appeared in are. Some songs might not be used often, but when it's brought back deliberately, it'll remind you of that exact same moment when you heard it before, along with the exact same feelings that accompany it. Pretty damn effective music storytelling, and when it's paired along with Fata Morgana's visuals, it sure sets the scene, despite there being no voice acting. I don't think that visual novels need voice acting to tell a great story, and the house in Fata Morgana is a perfect example. If anything, the absence of voice acting only served to make the other features, like the vocals and the music and the visual direction, stand out more. While I do think that the backgrounds help greatly set the mood and atmosphere, the real treat is in the character CGs. Moyotaro's artwork showcases these characters' emotions with vivid colors and shading details. There are some extremely striking looking pictures in here, which is why I would highly recommend downloading the Remade of Dreams patch if you buy the PC version. What this patch does is that it transforms the Steam version of The House in Fata Morgana on the PC into the remastered Dreams of Revenant edition of the game for the PS4 and Switch. Here, the CGs and background art have been updated for higher quality resolution and fitted for widescreen. Quality of life changes have also been added for a more easier reading experience. The Remade of Dreams PC patch not only works for the base game, but also includes patches for the spin-off games, Requiem for Innocence and Seventh Layer. Now, of course, visual presentation isn't the only thing that stands out. In fact, I think the most overlooked element is its text. Lines and phrases are deliberately delayed as if to reflect how a character feels and reacts. There's a moment I really like when a female character is struggling to speak in the face of her trauma and the text starts stuttering in accordance to her words. It's a really small touch, but I love the added attention to detail. During the story's more interesting moments, the visual novel also decides to take more creative approaches in handling the script. Center stage text for massive impact, paragraph spacing for spotlighting certain details, and even including hidden text to sneak in another narrative going on. That said, the only criticism I had regarding the writing is that sometimes the narration and dialogue doesn't fully reflect the time period that the characters are in. This leads to some weird cases where the script sounds strangely modern, despite set in, say, the Middle Ages. Not modern in the way that characters would speak with slang, but it was a strange feeling I had watching the conversations between characters. But I suppose it was written this way to help make the story more approachable to readers. All of this, from the artwork to the soundtrack to the script, does a phenomenal job in bringing you into this story and the world, to fully immerse you into the lives of these complex cast of characters, because the house in Fata Morgana wants you to understand them, and that becomes the biggest reason why you should read this visual novel. Each door that the maid takes you through is a momentary glimpse into the lives of these individuals. Door 1 tells a story set in 1603 of the complex relationship between a young aristocrat boy, his little sister, and a white-haired girl they hired as a maid. Door 2 tells a story set in 1707 about a savage beast who sates his hunger for violence by killing people and until the beast meets a woman who can face him without any fears. Door 3 tells a story set in 1869, where the marriage between a wealthy, greedy businessman and his devoted, loving wife is tested. Door 4 tells a story set in 1099, where a young girl moves to an isolated mansion where she meets an antisocial hermit living there, closed away from society. And all of these stories are interconnected in more ways than one, as all of them demonstrate that people are despicable. Really, no matter what time period you're in, people have the ability to do some pretty horrendous things to each other, either because they willingly carried it out or they simply let it happen. Branding someone as a witch in the Middle Ages just so happens to run on the same core foundations as banishing someone because of their skin or body. It's really unpleasant to watch. The house in Fata Morgana doesn't shy away from talking about dark, mature topics: serial murder, domestic abuse, sexual violence, and human trafficking. The story handles all of this in a respectful manner. We see the different perspectives on these tragic events, as the victim, as the bystander, and as the perpetrator. Like I said before, we get an intimate look into each character's thoughts and feelings, how they see themselves and the people around them, how they react towards certain situations, how they act in accordance to their own personal perspectives and beliefs, and why they become so tormented when faced with their worst fears and insecurities. All to make us, the reader, feel a wide range of emotions. An individual who you might label as despicable or traitorous can easily make you feel sympathetic and pitiful towards them many hours later. It's impressive how Fata Morgana interweaves its story narrative and character monologues to make you feel this way. Because let me tell you, I certainly didn't expect this guy to be the character I had the most conflicting feelings about. These people can do some outright terrible things, but through their own unique perspective, we can understand why, and in some cases, it's not even their fault. Just being human itself, living our own individual lives with our own unique experiences, naturally leads us to have biased opinions and perspectives, which only makes conflict inevitable when they clash with other people's. And in the worst cases, that conflict ultimately leads to tragedy. The house in Fata Morgana shows that a lot of factors can change a person's beliefs and attitude. No matter what time period, external factors like personal circumstances, family relations, and society's expectations can force people to act the way that they do. Hateful individuals might not act out in pure malice, but rather because of some deeply rooted weakness or insecurity. And as this behavior continues, that hatred ends up pouring out in the worst possible ways, affecting the people close to them and perpetuating that emotion of spitefulness. It's what makes these characters and their actions morally reprehensible, but also deeply relatable and human at the same time. As the house in Fata Morgana explores the feelings and reasons why people act in despicable ways, it also shows us the beauty that can come out of it. It just requires annoying some very unwilling, broody people. This visual novel is a very melancholy, moody story overall. However, it's also strangely funny when it wants to be. There's something comically amusing about watching a bubbly young girl teasing her aloof, stoic, gruff partner. In general, I quite enjoy seeing the exasperated reactions of this poor sap, considering all the stuff that happens to him. A breath of fresh air that's nicely appreciated. And you'll learn to enjoy those wholesome moments when you can, because at the same time, it's a measure of how intimate these people are to each other. Romance is a prominent element in Fata Morgana. Well, just as much as romance is an important element in Shakespeare's works, which is pretty damn telling. You'll get to see some cute romantic moments between the characters, and yet there's also an underlying sadness that occurs when these relationships are tested. Those causes that spawn hatred that I talked about before, those same elements can ultimately change a relationship for better or for worse, such as society's expectations, family ties, and probably the most important factor, one's sense of self in mind, body, and spirit. It's only natural to hide the darker parts of yourself, thoughts, beliefs, or past acts that you would rather hide from your significant other. But what happens when those are brought to light? what will happen? Will you be judged harshly, or will your partner respond in acceptance, even despite those actions perhaps being morally inexcusable? The house in Fata Morgana has each character go through those emotional trials to confront their past and those painful feelings that these characters are hesitant, even scared to think about. It's a fantastic breakdown. Sometimes it's simple to take the easy way out, and the visual novel does present you with those choices to explore what happens if these characters made those decisions. But we know that's not the right answer. It's necessary to take the difficult path for healing, but what helps these characters go down that path are the special people in their lives that they hold dear to them, and those that deeply care about them. You don't have to be dashingly handsome or extraordinarily heroic. Just the mere act of being genuinely kind, caring, and understanding is all that you need. And for some, even the bare minimum can mean a lot. The house in Fata Morgana easily makes us sympathetic to these characters by seeing their experiences. However, what really sells it is the moments when those characters in the story start to recognize that important lesson for themselves, seeing when their lives begin to change for the better because of it. This is a powerful story that strives to teach us admirable, virtuous ideals through its characters, role models essentially. We see that while people do make mistakes and poor choices, it's about the willingness to forgive and attempt to understand one another, in showing us the tragic circumstances that can happen, the hatred that can be perpetuated, and how we can strive to be better individuals. It's an artistic, captivating story all told through a gothic suspense mystery visual novel. This is a title worthy of its critical acclaim and one I would highly recommend for everyone to read, not just the visual novel fans in particular. Now, if you're interested in another highly rated visual novel, you might want to check out this video over here. I would like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novels. You guys are fantastic, and if you would like to be a part of that effort, please consider subscribing.